Welcome to the Recruiter Startup School podcast. My name's Dulta Doherty, and in this podcast series, I'll be interviewing investors, advisors, and entrepreneurs in the agency recruitment world. We'll be showing you how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment business. And this week, we're in for a real treat. I'm interviewing none other than James Osborne, who is a well-known investor and advisor and non-exec to multiple agency recruitment firms here in the UK. He runs the Recruitment Network, which is a collaborative forum of recruitment entrepreneurs and where they seek out best practices, and he's an advisor to many of them. And here is his story. Hope you enjoy.
Hello.
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm well. Welcome.
Right, excellent. So you're on a speaker. Let me just check this is okay. Is it a speaker? Is it? Okay. Okay. Sorry. Carry on, Dulcie. Sorry.
Welcome to the Recruiter Startup School. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, all is good in the south of England here.
Excellent.
So really excited to get you on here, mainly to pick your brain on all the wonderful people that you're helping. And we'll get to that a bit later. But can you kind of give us a bit of an insight into how you got into recruitment?
Yeah, sure. So I was living over in Australia at the time. I went over to Australia I was actually teaching scuba diving and sailing and living on a boat in the Whitsunday Islands in the north of Australia, and ended up moving down to Sydney and working on some boats on the harbour in Sydney. Long story short, went into a recruitment company to get a temp job. Ended up working actually in that recruitment company as a temp, and that went very well. So they stay on, they sponsored me, which was lovely, and then just did very well there and sort of moved up through the ranks over a period of time, which was really great. I was then brought across and worked for a lady called Therese Rain, who is the wife of the ex-Prime Minister over there, Kevin Rudd. So worked with her for a number of years, which was really exciting, really. So I suppose in essence, I sort of fell into recruitment, which I think a lot of people tend to do. I didn't personally choose at the time to be a recruiter. Sort of fell into it, but fell in love with it at the same time.
And Kevin Rudd back then, what was his position then?
Kevin Rudd, well, he was at the time he was going for Parliament, so he was in the government, becoming Prime Minister. It was his wife that I had the business. So I worked for her, and she had a number of government contracts. So ended up working sort of quite high level with some really interesting people in the sort of Australian government and the New South Wales.
So interesting.
Yeah, it was really fascinating, actually. And at quite a young age as well, it really exposed me to some fascinating insights that probably I wouldn't have naturally got otherwise. So she was a real mentor for me and a real inspiration, I have to say.
And I've started in Australia as well. And I got to a stage in my life where I don't know, I think my wife really wanted to get back to Europe and get a bit closer to family. What brought you back?
Well, exactly the same reasons. I think we've been there for about 7 or 8 years, and I think we decided that we wanted to have a family, and all our friends were getting married and having kids and that sort of thing, and it just felt like the right time, really. I think you realise Australia is quite a long way away, especially when it comes to sort of family and friends and that type of stuff. So I think we had a great time there and loved the place, but it just felt the right time for us from a family point of view to come back to the UK and start the next stage of our life.
And what was recruitment like back then? In
Australia? Yeah, it was a very different sort of market. I mean, one of the things I did notice about the Australian recruitment market, a lot of the business is done at a very personal level. I think with the Australians, quite rightly so, they really want to know you, that you have to build a real rapport and trust with them before they're willing to do business with you. So a lot of the recruitment was very much done based on a personal level. So really a lot of meeting and greeting and spending a lot of time in front of people rather than more the transactional sitting behind an email or a phone type stuff. So it really forced me to get out and see customers and learn the art of getting in front of customers and spending time with them, building rapport and all that sort of good stuff, which I think is a really important part of the recruitment process.
The first call to an Australian client is a bloody nightmare. They're so abrupt, they're so rude, they tell you where to go. The second call is they know who you are, they're a bit okay. The third, you get the meeting, and then once you meet them, you're in, and they are the best people to be in with. That was my business experience there.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're always that rude and abrupt, but you know, I think well, maybe, but I think about the Aussies. I mean, they say it as it is. You know, generally there's no messing around with an Australian, which I quite like. You know, because at least you know where you're up to with them and that type of stuff, really. So, but you know, I mean, we found a lot of the business that we did came through building networks and building, you know, communities and referrals and that type of stuff, more so than the classic sort of cold calling style.
It's funny. Like I've recruited in Canada as well, and it was completely the opposite. They will absolutely entertain your call. They'll absolutely have a meeting, but they mightn't give you any business, so you don't really see. You don't really know where you stand. I actually preferred the Australian model myself as well.
Yeah, sure.
So you moved back to England, and you didn't stay in the full thrust of agency recruitment. Then you kind of took a bit of a change in your career?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think one of the things I really enjoyed when I was working in recruitment, especially at sort of leadership level in Australia, was I enjoyed the sort of helping people, the guidance, the advice, the training, the coaching, the strategic stuff, and that sort of thing. So when I came back to the UK, moving down to Bath in the West Country, because I didn't really. I thought moving from Sydney to London would be a bit too much of a heavy transition, so I thought I'd go somewhere very quintessentially English like Bath. And when I came back, I just thought, you know, what do I really enjoy doing? And I thought actually going down the route of more coaching, mentoring, training, advising multiple recruitment companies multiple companies, not just in recruitment for that matter, was more in line with what I really enjoyed in Australia. So I felt that was a natural transition. So that's what I ended up setting up my first company, which is Energy. Which still exists today, actually, and we work with lots of different organisations. There's a real variety in there, which is good. And you know, I did enjoy it when I was selling in recruitment in Australia. I did enjoy the idea of going to multiple different types of organisations, different styles of businesses, really getting to understand their business and all that type of stuff. Which I suppose, in essence, is a lot of what we do now as sort of advisors and non-exec directors.
Yeah, really. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to this stuff as well. I just love getting into all the granular of it. So you did that. You did that you still have that company.
Yeah.
How did that lead into what you're up to now?
Yeah. So basically, I mean, we have, you know, the Energy has been going for years, and it's a good business, and you know, we work with such a multitude of different types of clients. From you know, we work with banks, law firms, pub chains, a real variety. But obviously, because my background was in recruitment, we naturally gravitated towards recruitment companies as well, because it's a market that we understood. So it got to a point where, you know, a big chunk of our client base were recruitment companies. So we decided. Well, kind of long story short, I went through a few sort of metamorphoses on the way, but about 18 months, 2 years ago, we decided to sort of create a brand which is purely dedicated to the recruitment sector. So we're just talking everything recruitment, and that's where the recruitment network came about, which, as I say, we launched that. We launched it sort of unofficially 2 years ago, officially about 18 months ago, and that's just the key part of our business that's just grown significantly since then.
Can you tell us what you do there exactly? What do you provide to these companies, and what type of companies?
Yeah, very much so. So, I mean, it's a very simple model, actually, but it just seems to work incredibly well, which we're pleased about. You know, our sort of objective is very simple. So we work with recruitment organisations of any size, so whether it be startup through to an organisation that's got 200-300 staff. And our job is to help them outperform the market, maximise their profitability, and maintain a significant competitive edge in what is a fairly saturated or busy marketplace. And we do that through a whole host of different things. So the process that we have is built around advisory services and consultancy. So rather than doing that one-to-one as in a typical sort of non-exec director environment, we have one-to-many. So we have a club that our recruitment leaders join. They become a member of the club, and that allows them to access sort of myself and our advisory team, plus a load of other industry experts and entrepreneurs that are sort of hanging out with us and who are friends of the network.
Let me take you back just a step, just in case people don't know. What is a non-exec exactly, and what do they provide?
Yeah, sorry. So a non-exec director is basically an external advisor that sort of is parachuted into a company and provides external advice on how to grow a business. So there are formal non-exec relationships where you actually sit on their board. There are informal ones where you almost like a consultant that comes in once a month or once a quarter, or depending what the needs are. And your job really is to, as an outsider, looking at everything that you see going on in the market, advising a company on what they should be doing, what probably they shouldn't be doing, and how to get more out of their business and make sure they're on the right growth plans, whatever that growth plan might be. So it's really an advisory role. At the end, non-exec director title, I think, is a bit of a funny title, really, because I think a lot of recruitment organizations just need support and advice and make mistakes that other people have made in the past. And our job is really to help them, advise them with that. But what we try and do as our advisory service is not just talk about stuff and give them advice, is actually help them implement it afterwards. So it's very much a sort of a roll your sleeves up, let's get involved, let's not just talk about the strategy, let's actually help you drive the strategy, implement the strategy, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much what an NED does.
And when somebody comes to you, the most common thing that people ask me, and I'm not an expert, but I tend to get these questions, is, what models would work for my business? Should it be a 180 or a 360? Should I be doing remote? Which desks should I take? All this type of stuff. How do you advise them which is right for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting market. There's a lot of advisors in the recruitment sector, a lot of very good advisors in the recruitment sector doing what we do. Everyone has their own way of working, their own opinions of what's best, what doesn't work, what does work. And probably they all hold their own merit in some way. So, we naturally always sway to the one that we think is better. But for me, I have personal opinions about which models I think are better, which we can talk about in a second. But I think it really depends on the company themselves. There isn't a one size fits all strategy or way of working in recruitment. There are definitely some very clear sort of threads that every recruitment company should follow. But typically, really, there's different models that work for different people in different industries and different markets and different stages of your growth as well. Personally, I'm quite a big fan of, you mentioned the 180 360 model, 180 being, you're either a recruiter filling jobs, or you're a salesperson finding the jobs, or versus a 360 model where you're doing both. I'm personally a bit of a fan of the former, the 180 model. I like to separate sales and delivery, because I think when you separate sales and delivery, then you've got people who are focused on doing what they are good at doing, what they enjoy doing, and they become better at it because they have one line of focus rather than trying to do multiple things and be good at sort of everything. Having said that, there are some really amazing 360 consultants out there, and there's some great recruitment companies out there who very successfully manage the 360 models. So that doesn't always work. It's just a personal thing. I quite like the 180 model is one that I generally try and push people towards more.
Yeah, it definitely works more for contract, and you only have to look at the companies in America and the tenure of the people that stay there. Generally, people will stay a bit longer in firms in America, in my experience, based on the fact that the people who are doing delivery don't have to sell, and the people who are happy to sell probably are getting paid more money but are under more stress in order to bring stuff in. So it's
yeah, I think it evolves as the markets evolve as well. And I think a lot of this depends on a number of different things. Something, for example, if you're in a candidate short marketplace, which a lot of people are in a lot of global, certainly in the UK, if you look at the UK market, there's a lot of people who are, we're in a candidate type market. It's a lot harder to find candidates. So really, I think it's easier to bring on jobs now than it's ever been. I think it's a lot harder to fill jobs than it's ever been. So actually, I'd rather, if I've got a recruiter whose job is to fill jobs and make conversion ratios increase and that type of stuff, that's all I really want them to be doing. And I think when we start distracting them sometimes with sales KPIs that either they haven't got really time to do, or they don't really want to do, or they're not even very good at it, it seems a bit flawed strategy to have people doing something that probably is taking away from what we really need them to do, is converting more of the jobs that they've currently got.
And how do you go about advising who should do which system?
Well, it really, again, it depends on a whole load of different things. It depends on where they are in their sort of growth. Some recruitment companies are at very different stages of their growth plans. Some are trying to build up a business which has equitable value that they might want to create some event for in a few years' time, either sell it or do a management buyout or whatever it might be. Some people are trying to create just a very nice lifestyle business. So it sort of depends on what you want to create. one of the words I use a lot in recruitment companies when I'm sort of talking to them is about how you create something that's sustainable. And sustainability, I think, has a number of different translations depending on where you are in your sort of growth. But often it means, from my point of view, is that you've got people who are turning machines that sort of just almost like function when people aren't there. So you've got a good, solid recruitment machine that's turning and finding talents and finding truffles and filling jobs and that sort of stuff. And then there's a good sales machine out there, which is continuously attracting and bringing in the right quality and types of business that's.
And how do we use technology in order to supplement and improve that process without taking away from the human element?
Yeah, well, I think you used a pertinent word there, which is how do we use technology as opposed to how do we avoid technology? There is a bit of a fear factor at the moment of that, technology might replace recruiters in the future. And I'm not necessarily sure that's quite true. But we need to be utilizing the technology because people are using the technology. There's more different types of recruitment tech coming into the market every day. We get advice. We have an investment business where we help raise capital for and funding for recruitment companies or recruitment tech for that matter. And we're approached continuously with people saying, I've got this idea, this new technology that will replace the need to use recruiters, all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure that's necessarily true, but having said that, it is a busy market and our customers and the clients that we're recruiting, technology is a way of supporting and growing and making their recruitment processes more efficient. So I think we need to embrace technology. We certainly need to understand what's out there in the market because everyone else is looking at it. And I don't think we need to be afraid of it, but we just need to embrace it. And I think the other thing we need to be a little bit careful of is that we don't overuse technology because there is a lot of tech out there. And they're all, as they come on board, they're all very nice, shiny, new bits of things that we can play with. If you end up with too many things, you end up actually not doing anything properly. So my advice always is to use technology as a way of improving the way that you deliver a personalized service and make it more efficient, more effective, enable you to find candidates and talent pools and markets that other people can't find. But don't use too much of it. Just use the stuff that's going to help have a return on investment for your time.
And a friend of mine asked me a question, and it's probably much better to ask you it. He wanted to know, how does he set his recruitment company apart in terms of employer branding, rather than just being one of many out there? And I think it's a question anybody listening who runs a recruitment company is going to want to listen to the answer.
Yeah, no, it's a really fascinating piece, right? And the I'm a big fan of the Seth Godin concept when he talks about sort of the purple cow effect, about how do you be a purple cow in a sort of a crowded marketplace with black and white cows. And I think we hear of organizations spending hours and hours in boardrooms and debating their USPs, their points of difference, their differentiators. We then spend a fortune on different websites and different branding mechanisms to make us different and look different from everybody else. We've even got some recruitment companies to sort of try and take out the word recruitment and from their brands to make them sort of stand out as they're not even recruitment companies, they're different, that sort of thing. And I think ultimately, recruitment is recruitment. It's not that difficult. It's not that complicated. The only USP any real recruitment company ever has, I think, is the actual measurable and very tangible difference that they make to their customers. So I think we need to spend more time not trying to come up with USPs and points of difference. I don't think our customers really care about that, to be honest with you. I think we need to spend more time talking about the very measurable return on investment and impact that we've made to candidates and clients as we're working with them. So that's the focus for me. And I love it when recruitment companies are producing really meaningful data about the impacts they have on the entire ecosystem for their clients. So not only their ability to find great talent, their ability for that talent to get to speed quickly and be more effective when they get in that role, the impact that we have as recruiters on retention of their talent. That to me is the impact that a recruiter can make, and that's the stuff I think we should be talking about more. And that to me is really the differentiator.
What gets you excited when somebody comes to you for investment? What type of person? What type of company? You mentioned you have a vehicle that facilitates that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily investment. I think it's when people just come to us generally looking to do something with their business. I get very inspired by the entrepreneurialism of the recruitment sector. I think it's a wonderful industry. I think there's some really fascinating, forward-thinking companies out there doing some really interesting stuff. I love the energy and the fact that people are very passionate about what they're doing, and very passionate about making quite a significant difference in the marketplace. So that gets me really excited. And whether that's them looking for investment, or just looking for advice, looking for guidance, they're looking for whatever it might be. I just love hanging out with the sector because it's such an entrepreneurial sector. And because there's no real barriers of entry in the recruitment sector, and anyone can really get into recruitment and run a recruitment company or be a recruiter, it means there's so many new, fresh ideas coming into the market all the time, and that just keeps it really buoyant and really forward moving. And I think as an industry, because it's such an important part of the global economy, the impact that we make to the economy is significant. I think it's fascinating watching how fast that's evolving at the moment, and how recruiters and the recruitment industry itself is having a significant impact, not only on talent in the industry and globally, but also the economy globally as well.
Out of the types of members that you mentioned are in the network, the one that I tend to find myself working with as a rector a bit more is the high growth firms, mainly because just the owners tend to excite me, and I think the opportunity is great if nobody's in the seat already and they're being built for a sale at some stage. There's going to be new offices, there's going to be new opportunities for whoever we're dealing with, and it's a real way for people to fast track their career. What do you think sets those companies apart from other firms? Like, what are you seeing in the way that they run their business and their vehicle?
Yeah, I think just to touch on one point with that, I think we need to clarify the definition of what a high growth firm is.
In my head, most of them their leaders have left S3 in the last 10 years. They've got a HQ in London. They're putting an office in New York. They're putting an office in Hong Kong. They're putting a few different offices around the place, and they're hiring in a responsible, profitable but aggressive way, and they're built for scale.
Yeah, I think that's a good definition. But I think also, let's not forget those recruitment companies that don't have international aspirations, sure, and actually just want to maximise what they've got and do a better job. I still consider that to be a high growth company from a profit point of view, as opposed to necessarily a sort of volume of staffing perspective. But I think what are these sort of the recruitment companies that seem to be moving forward along a journey, whatever that journey is for them. The ones that seem to be moving forward the fastest, I think more than anything, the ones that are absolutely fixated on the importance of people within their business. No business in the world, recruitment company or otherwise, can grow without the right talent, without the right recruiters. No business can grow unless you've engaged that talent properly, unless you are maximising the efficiency and return on investment on that talent. And those people in the business feel like they are moving forward as well, aligned with the company growth. So, I love those recruitment leaders out there who seem to spend, 90% of their time working with their people as opposed to working on the strategy. And that, to me, I think is quite a big difference. And there are some wonderful leaders out there in the recruitment sector who seem to do that so well. Who are, I was talking to one of our members fairly recently. He's got a great business, absolutely superb, and they. He every single day will take one of his staff members out for lunch every day. Always has done and will continue to do so. And it's that fixation on the people, I think, is absolutely critical, because it doesn't really matter how good your strategy is if you haven't got the right people to deliver on that. It isn't going to work ultimately. So I think number one is that, and I think the other thing I will say is, I think as an industry, and I was chatting to one of my non-exec directors actually on our board, Graham Puffrey-Smith, fairly recently, and we're just talking about how the market is. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of in the market is that profitability is being, whilst revenue and growth is definitely there for a lot of organisations, the actual bottom line profit is being squeezed a lot more than it's ever been.
In terms of temp businesses and perm businesses?
Well, both, and I'm not talking about GP. I'm talking about bottom line profit, yeah. Because I think because what's happening is the cost of acquisition, the cost of getting candidates and that type of stuff has increased because it's harder, and we have to do a lot more to find candidates. So the time, the resource taken to do that has increased, which then obviously has an impact on people's capacity and also squeeze on profits. So I do find, going back to the question, I do find the recruitment companies that seem to be growing better than anybody else are the ones who have quite a solid fixation on bottom line profitability growth as much as that vanity piece at the top, which is about turnover. And they seem to really be fixated on that. And then consequently, they've got their staff focused on profitability. And I love it when a consultant is thinking about off their own back, what am I going to do to try and improve this margin by 0.5%? Or what am I going to do to try and reduce the amount of time it takes to recruit in this type of role by 15% over the next 6 months, and improve efficiencies. And when everyone starts thinking like that, the business grows because it's profitable and not necessarily because it's sort of turning over lots of money, which are two different things.
And talk to me about a company's vision. How does a leader inspire his staff? Like, how does he communicate that vision of?
Yeah, this is something we've been doing a lot of recently, actually, and I think a lot of this has been driven by Simon Sinek, who came out with that concept of the golden circles. Start with the why. I don't know if any of you listening to this, certainly look it up on YouTube and listen to Simon Sinek's sort of presentation on TED about how you start with the why. And I think it's a big part of it is that I think, especially with the changing demographics we have in people who work for our businesses, whether you call them millennials or whatever, doesn't really matter. But I think a lot more people are more interested in the purpose motive rather than the profit motive. And I think a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders in businesses are better off focusing on getting people bought into the purpose motive of the business, the why we do what we do. We're knowing that if we do that, the profit motive will follow. And I think, often you see a lot of sort of classic AGMs where we sit down in a nice fancy hotel somewhere, get a bottle of wine out or two and get all the staff together and we go, right, guys, next year we're going to increase turnover by 24%. We're going to turn over, 7.8 million or whatever the number is. And everyone gets really excited, goes and has a few drinks and back to the office the next day. Nothing's really changed because they're not really bought into the profit motive as much. I think people need to be bought into the purpose motive as much as anything else. It has to be aligned with the profit motive and there has to be profit there, obviously. But I think a lot of people, especially at sort of desk level, I get more excited by what the business is, what it's doing, the impact it's making, the impact they're personally making. Is it making a difference? And getting that piece right, which I think is really good.
And does that come back to the impact they're making on the candidates they place and they improve their circumstances, or is it how they? Yeah. How do you communicate that piece?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I sometimes get laughed at when I say this, but one thing I do definitely believe in, and it's absolutely true, is that when we place a candidate, we do make a transformational difference to their lives. We really, really do. And I've had candidates that I've worked with years ago that I placed years ago, who I still talk to today, who have moved up the ranks in businesses. And you don't take the credit for that, but you certainly had an impact on their life and their ability to get there. And I think that's really, really powerful. And I think sometimes when we become very KPI sales driven all the time, I think sometimes we lose sight of the sort of that impact that we make. And then it becomes a bit like a machine that we're just churning, as opposed to we're actually making a difference as an industry. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm very much focused about creating profitability and driving growth and all that type of stuff from the bottom line. But I want people to enjoy the jobs. I want people to feel passionate about what they do. And I want people to deliver a service which is above and beyond everyone else, because that is a USP. If you're delivering a service that is transformational and people are talking about you and referring business to you, that drives profitability and growth. So I think that start with the why piece is really important.
And communicating that why, not every leader is going to take everybody for lunch every day, but is there any other ways that they can go about that? Is that a weekly meeting? Is it a one-on-one? How?
Yeah, well, there's loads of ways, really. I mean, communicating it is pretty simple. You just keep talking about it and reminding people all the time. When you're doing things like appraisals and performance reviews with people, we don't just focus on, did you do the activity, were you 10% above target, 5% below, all that type of stuff. You're talking about that, but on top of that, you're talking about the behaviours that people are demonstrating, the values that they're living by. Asking them for demonstrative proof of where they've delivered on those things, because that's the stuff that drives the performance and everything else. There's one recruitment company that we've done some work with who they don't pay their consultants commission based on their billings, and they base it on their net promoter score. So based in essence on the feedback they get from their customers. They're a very successful, fast-growing recruitment company, definitely outperforming a big chunk of the marketplace. And I think that's really cool, really, because it's basically saying, look, not only are we going to talk about it's important to have a purpose and deliver a great quality service, we're actually going to make it as one of the ways our business is, one of the sort of the models our business is built around, and that's what you get paid by. That's really powerful, I think.
Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, James. So, how do people reach out to you? How can we join the network if we want to? What type of events are you going to be running in the UK and Ireland and abroad even?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we run probably about 8 or 9 events every month at the moment. So we have obviously our member specific events. Then we also have other stuff that we do. We run taster sessions every month. So we invite sort of 30 or 40 recruitment leaders to come along and just experience what it is that we do. We are launching an international platform in a few weeks' time. So we will be taking the entire concept of the network internationally, which we're really excited about, which is great. But really for us, you know, we're not people who go out and sort of try and bang the phones and do hard sales. I think if you're going to spend some time with an advisory business, whether it be a non-exec director or a network like ours, I think what's really important is that you've got to trust them. You've got to have a network that you're happy to be challenged by and that type of stuff. So I think it's important for people to just come hang out with us and experience what we do. And if they like it and it fits for them and we think we can help them and vice versa, then we love to invite them into the network and get involved with what we're doing. If it's not right for them or it's not the right time for them, then that's absolutely fine. But I think the starting point really for us is people just come and experience what we do. So we offer taster sessions. We have a whole load of tools and documentation and guides and free stuff that we give away all the time. So if anybody needs anything, they can come and ask us for it. And often what we just ask people, if you've got a challenge in your business, or you want to have a chat, or you want to meet up in an office and we'll just talk about some of the things that you're doing, maybe not doing, there's no charge for that. It's not a sales pitch. It's actually, look, if we can help you, we will. We love the industry from that point of view. And if you find that we're adding a value to you there and then, you might want to hang out with us longer and get involved with the network and meet all the other members and get cracking, really, and then go on a bit more of a formalized journey moving forward.
Well, we covered some amount in this half an hour interview, so I'm going to have to go and re-listen to digest it all and to get the best bits out. But thanks so much. I mean, I could talk to you about this type of stuff all day, but I appreciate not everybody wants to go into all the detail that I do.
Well, no, I mean, I've really enjoyed this. You know, and I love the industry. I really do. So I could talk about it for hours and hours and hours, as you can probably guess. But you know, if people want to contact us, if they go to our website, recruitmentnetwork.com, have a look around, they can contact us directly. Love to have a chat with them, and whatever we can do to help, we certainly will do. Because we love what we're doing and we love the entrepreneurialism of the industry, and if we can help keep it growing, then we will do so. So I think what you're doing here with these podcasts is brilliant, because I think, you know, all the different people you're talking to gives lots of advice and little snippets that hopefully 1 or 2 people will take and implement, and it will make some impact on their business moving forward.
And it gets me to talk to awesome people like you. Thanks so much.
Really appreciate it. Good to chat to you. Cheers.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.